Okay, so this is a great framework to start to understand, our beliefs, how we operate, some of our repetitive behaviors, and I think for a lot of us to get a more holistic understanding of where we're coming from and how we operate. This is called the fundamental operating system. My friend Bodhi turned me onto this, years ago, and I tend to use it as an understanding of where I'm coming from at any given time. The idea is that, how I experience the world is through a series of lenses that I've kind of created that can somewhat act to distort the way I'm experiencing the world or the way I'm experiencing my reality. And it's a combination of, my thoughts and feelings and my experiences, and then how the outside world coming in, how I interact with kind of the present moment. So generally the broad idea for this common distinction would be, at some point, in my early experience of life, there was some sort of kind of event. People call it the wounding. Some sort of event, whether that's childhood trauma, whether that was loss of a loved one, something that our minds just didn't have enough experience to really understand and contextualize. And that created some sort of event that left an impression on us. And through that experience, we develop beliefs about the world and about kind of our role in it. So, you could think of a child whose parents get divorced, or they lose a loved one, or there's some sort of abuse early on. That kind of wounding can create, or our operating system. You think of our minds and our experience as an operating system, just like a phone or a computer. It writes in a little bit of code in the operating system of the world is unsafe, or I'm unsafe, or the world is unfair, or whatever this code that's written, that this becomes kind of a foundational belief. And through those lenses, we tend to kind of have repetitive emotions that come up, whether that's fear, anger, sadness, jealousy, whatever. There's positive and there's negative emotions, but how we start to interact with those at an early age, whether we avoid them or whether we fall into them, and we just kind of wear those as a cloak, tend to distort our views of the world, because then now all of a sudden we're at effect in the world, and now I'm feeling sad. This is what I do when I'm sad. I'm feeling angry. This is what I do when I'm angry. And these patterns of behaviors tend to set in. I think the way these lenses tend to we create these lenses, and we tend to experience the world, and then all of a sudden we are. My website and my social media is generally geared towards men, householders, fathers, husbands. Now we're adult males. We have responsibility over others. We have bills, other people's lives that we're responsible for. But along the way, we've developed these beliefs and these emotions and these behaviors, and I think the behaviors can generally be, there's a big bucket of behaviors that are like the men that lean on substance, right? So it's the cannabis, alcohol, prescription drugs, illicit drugs, the behaviors of the workaholic. That's a lens through which we've developed over the course of this, this journey. The workaholic, exerciseaholic, the guy who's got a million hobbies and he's really good at all these things and he's constantly busying himself. Now, these aren't necessarily good or bad. It's just when we start to engage in the world and we start to see these repetitive behaviors and these repetitive thoughts, and we're stressed, stress coming in a lot of us want to start to unpack that, want to start to improve our station in life. And this fundamental operating system is literally just a tool, and it's a framework that we can kind of start to understand how we operate and what are some of those mechanisms. I think to use this tool to its fullest, the idea is going to be for me to unpack what are those behaviors that I engage in that are generally I'm generally trying to avoid a feeling and emotion that I don't want to be experiencing. So kind of as we start to work backwards through the lenses, I can identify, the way I lean on substance because I don't want to feel stressed, right? So the way I lean on alcohol or cannabis, or, the way I lean on, just diving into binge watching something on television, these my behaviors are more kind of a symptom of an avoidant behavior. There's an emotion I don't want to be feeling. So as I start to work backwards through these lenses, what I want to do is start to get an understanding of what are those beliefs that I'm holding about myself and about the world. And as I start to get an understanding about those repetitive thoughts, how stress comes in, then I can start to get a better understanding of what would I like to rewrite into that operating system. If I can update that, if I could get a whole OS update, what kind of code would I want to write into that to be more, to be more sovereign, to be stronger, to be more the hero in that, instead of allowing, mine are simple. It's family, relationship, money. They're very simple stressors, and to be able to start to get an understanding of, what happens when I get a big bill that I'm not prepared to pay, or I wasn't planning on. Like, what's that little boy inside me? What's that little limiting belief, that victimhood? Because at the end of the day, I'd rather take this, as the adult version of myself, like the strong, prepared, well-resourced adult version of myself, because I have gone through, many trials and tribulations, and I understand I generally operate in a certain way when I get through challenges to get to the other side. But there are definitely those times where I just fall back into that little boy. And I think if we think of the hero's journey, we're constantly being challenged, and we're constantly being asked to evolve and to develop new skills, to learn new things, to have different experiences, and to come out of these challenges, in a stronger version of ourselves, right? If you think of getting out of school, becoming fathers, getting into the workforce, becoming husbands, all these things, like, we continue to be asked to kind of level up and to change to change how we interact with the world, right? We want to be the hero in the story. Like, we don't want to just keep getting knocked on the chin and knocked out. So I think this framework is a very simplistic way to look at the world and how we interact with it. It's a very simplistic way for us to understand, okay, so generally, I see the world through these distorted series of lenses. And as I start to do my work, as I grow up and become a husband, a father, a householder, have a responsibility with work, have responsibility with all kinds of things, I want to, it's a daily activity for me to start to clean these lenses, to clean the smudges, to see, how I can view the world as it is without these distortions. And I think this is a great tool that I can always go back to, like, because it can be hard for us to understand, for men to truly feel our feelings and feel our emotions, at least in modern society. I think for us to understand, where am I operating from? Am I operating from a weaker position? Or am I more sovereign in where I'm at? And am I making decisions from that sovereign place of strength, versus from some kind of victim, mentality? How I approach the world can really be seen, with, which lens is predominating my viewpoint right now. And it's a great framework, especially when we want to start to level up, when we want to start to improve things. When we really want to start to dive in, this is where I can go to 12-step work. I can go to therapy with an understanding of, I kind of know how I'm operating. I know what's in my beliefs, my behaviors category. I know I lean on substance, or I know I busy myself with either hobby or work or exercise. I tend to avoid things because I busy myself, or I tend to hide. I lean on substance. I watch, countless hours of television or movies or sport, and what are some of those emotions that are triggering those behaviors? And then what's a new way that I'd like to be able to engage those emotions? And then all the while kind of getting down to what are those core beliefs around my core wounding? If there was abuse present in the home when we were younger, there are going to be some beliefs that are driving our behavior. Very hard to avoid that. We're very impressionable at a very early age. And if there was emotional, physical abuse, sexual abuse, if there was loss of someone, if it was a very stressful home, like our minds at those young ages are like sponges, and we just start to create meaning around things we don't understand. And believe me, that code is written in our operating system somewhere. And you can see how you behave. And I'm sure if we can be honest with ourselves, there are ways that we operate that we know, okay, like I'm acting like a little kid, like how I reacted to that stressor, whether it's my partner, whether it was the traffic, whether it's a work deadline, or having to do too many things, and not thinking I've got the time to do it. Like how I reacted to that wasn't how my adult version would react. And this is just a great way to have some common distinctions. It's a simple formula to understand. I see the world through this series of lenses that I've created through my experiences. And now I can start to work through, whether it's a men's group, whether it's therapy, whether it's 12-step, I can start to clean these up and to have an understanding of how I'm operating, so that, I can show up in every moment as the better version of myself, the part of me that's worked my ass off to be. And this is just a great kind of tool that we can use to do that.